Hello everyone and welcome back to Whisky Wednesday. Slightly different feel this week because we're talking about auction wins. I recently was trolling through the last day of Scotch whisky auctions and managed to get these two little gems for not that much money. Here we have what I believe to be an official bottle of Little Mill, non-age statement. And here we have a James MacArthur bottling of a 12-year-old Pittyvaich at 54% ABV. This doesn't state if it is a single barrel or not, but it does have a cask number on the front of it, 15096. Just at the bottom there, in the red writing. Little Mill and Pittyvaich. Many moons ago, I tried the old official Little Mill 12-year-old, thanks to a sample given to me by Martin Jones, who used to run the Manchester Whisky Club. I have tried two Pittybaichs in the past. One is the old Flora and Fauna, which never got a great review in general, and one was a Diageo special release, I think from like 2016 or 17. I think it was a 26 or a 27-year-old or something along those lines, maybe even a 29-year-old. We'll go through their histories, it's all quite interesting. I've tried to find some info on James MacArthur as an independent bottler. The only time I'd ever come across their name before was many years ago, a very young Port Ellen. It was an independently bottled 12-year-old Port Ellen in a sherry cask, sold for a lot of money. I think it was something like 12,000 euros on a European auction site. And it was a James MacArthur bottling in the same green bottle, obviously a full-size one. That was the first time I'd ever come across the name. It doesn't really exist in the modern day as far as independent bottlers go, but clearly very successful back in the day. We're just going to dive into these really. I'm going to do the Little Mill first. They're both sat in their little glasses respectively. I finally bought some new Copita glasses with little lids on them so we can start doing some more accurate side-by-side reviews. We're going to jump into this Little Mill first. Now this is a 40% ABV whiskey. Little Mill Distillery, the oldest distillery on legal record in Scotch whisky history, 1772. It's currently owned by the Loch Lomond Group. It is a lowland distillery and its current status is that it's demolished, it is gone. Outside of being what was Scotland's oldest working distillery, they stopped production in 1992, triple distillation was practiced up until about 1930. And then in 1996 the entire distillery was dismantled and I believe some of it burnt down in 2004, which was quite unfortunate. Banff as well also had some quite unfortunate whiskey warehouse fires too. Tried Little Mill in the past, wasn't really impressed with it. So most people might be saying, well, why have you bought another one? Why not really? Because when you go through auction sites, the only thing I do these days on auction sites is go to the last page of an auction just to see what things are kind of going for a bargain. Now these cost me £20 each, and considering they're closed distilleries, I don't think that's that bad to try them because you'd probably pay the equivalent or more in a bar to try it. So I thought, why not? Really annoying thing about Scotch whisky auctions is that when you win, when you get the email to say, hey, you've won, you pay for them. So, 40 quid. And then, things get busy in your life, you forget about stuff. And it was only about a week or so ago, I was like, hang on a minute, where are these bottles? And then you've got to go into your account just to pay for delivery. Like, let me pay for delivery when I pay for the bottles. Like, why would you delay it? Slight annoying point. But here it is in this glass. Now, when I've poured this, I was looking at it and there is some rather unusual sediment in it. And it's not sediment like barrel char or anything. I don't even know if the camera will pick it up. It just looks like dust. Really fine, like little microfibers almost. It isn't there's not that much of it in the bottle. Like I've given it a good old shake, so I don't know if it was just kind of sat on top. I've no idea when this was bottled. Obviously before 1992. There is a small code on the back which might give us a clue to maybe 1985. This may have been bottled. So it has been sat in that little bottle for quite a long time. But I've tried it, it tastes fine. Sorry, there's flies in the room. I don't think it will give me any sort of worries to my health. I will say for a 40% whiskey, it does have some decent body and legs on it. I was going to bring this in to show you. This doesn't state if it's coloured or chill filtered, as it's a non-age statement. It's quite a light colour. I would assume that is probably uncoloured. And then regarding chill filtration, don't really know. But let's have a smell, let's have a taste. That is your typical grassy, light lowland. I know people say Daft Mill is quite reminiscent of St Magdalene and Rosebank, but there is a little mill vibe. You can see how they'd be connected that to Daft Mill. It's got this very sort of candied, sweet thing. There's quite a lot of lemon, but you know, in bourbon cask lowland whiskey, lemon is like such a dominant thing. But it's lemon to the point of where it's kind of like candied, so like lemon bonbons or something like that. There's like a powdered sugary note to it. It's quite grassy, it's quite fresh, it's very light. And there's even like a distant thing of maybe like orange citrus too, or maybe even orange juice. But yeah, the nose isn't offensive. There's almost no alcohol burn to smell at all with this, even if you smell quite low down in the glass. There's very little fizz from it at all. Soft, candied, sweet citrus fruits. Kind of what I remember from the other little mill I've tried in the past. But let's taste it and see what's going on. Okay, that is the first whiskey I've tried today. Comes across as a little bit spicy. Like kind of chili spicy. That's unusual. I was not expecting that at all. I'll be very honest. I will try and link the older Little Mill review I did a couple of years ago in, because I'm remembering now what I said about that review many years ago. And sometimes you can actually see why distilleries shut down. Now, it's not bad liquid, it's not made badly, it tastes totally fine. But in the grand scheme of whiskey, it is so light and delicate. Long pause there, sorry about that. But there's just like, you get this little arrival of chili, there's like a lemony thing again, there's almost like a marshmallow softness to it. You could see, I mean, like, if bottles of this still existed and weren't crazy expensive, you could see how you and a couple of friends could probably like go through that quite easily, because it is so inoffensive and so easy drinking that it's kind of scary. And I mean that in like a legitimate way, because, you know, it is high strength product whiskey. But it's, and I'm going to use the word, it's just a bit boring. It honestly is. Like, there's no sort of fun thing on the palate, there's no complexity to it. Like, it's quite delicate as a flavour profile, but there's no initial taste, and then there's no like list of flavour kind of following it down from the initial arrival on your palate. It's just, it's there, and then you swallow it, and then it's not, and then there's a slight kind of malty, biscuity thing to it at the end. Impressed with that. Obviously, I will enjoy the rest of that sample at some point, and it's kind of a cool little old miniature. This one didn't really get a lot of time up front here, but like, if it'll focus, the label's pretty cool. I do dig the label. Like, labels like that look pretty good on modern shelves, to be honest with you. Yeah, 2 sips of that, and I'm just a little bit like, it's not leaving a lasting impression. So we move on to Pittyvaich. I'm just gonna have a bit of water in between. What can I tell you about Pittyvaich? Not the shortest lived distillery ever, but I think the second shortest lived distillery ever. I think Ladyburn was only open for like 9 years. Might be a little bit longer than that, but I think it was 9 years at Ladyburn. Pittyvaich, I believe, was only open from like 1974 to about 93. So 19 years in this case, if my history is correct here. Originally built by Arthur Bell and Co., and at some points was used as the Gordon's Gin distillery. Pittyvaich was one of those Dufftown distilleries which really just didn't get a lot of attention. I don't really know how to explain Pittyvaich to people because the old school flora and fauna 12-year-old, my god, that thing gets bad reviews. Most people say it just tastes like soy sauce. And I have tried it, but when I did try it, I was in a bit of a rush because I had to catch a train. And when I was running to the train, I just had this like tacky, unattractive taste in my mouth, which I wasn't really a fan of. But yeah, the distillery was mothballed in 1993, much like Little Mill. It's now fully demolished. And it just sits on that kind of outside area of Dufftown. It is still owned by Diageo. You still get some releases of Pittyvaich over time, but they tend to be very light refill bourbon styles. And some of, again, the lightest, easiest drinking whiskey I've ever come across. But as we remove the lid from this, it is a more attractive colour than the Little Mill. They're not far off being the same colour, if I'm being honest with you. But you can see a slight little bit more darkness in this Pittyvaich. Now, this is bottled at 54% and is a 12-year-old. So one would imagine that there is zero colouring and no chill filtration in this. It also has no bits floating around in it, which I'm quite happy about. So, let's smell, let's taste. Okay, much more present, but we know that already because it's higher alcohol. This is very, very much in the same vein as things like Inchmurrin. For those of you that haven't tried Inchmurrin is the more sort of, it's a Loch Lomond distillate. They use a very unusual type of still to produce it. And it always has these like melony, tropical fruit notes. It's very much sitting in that vein. There's also a really nice barley sugar note to it. And melon too. I'm not really a melon guy. Like, I don't really like melon at all. Like watermelon. Watermelon's nice, but every other melon I see is kind of pointless. They don't really taste as much. But there is a huge smell of like cantaloupe and stuff running through this. A little bit of buzz on the nose. And then if I can get this thing to show off its viscosity. Already, we've got so much more beading and running of the legs on the whiskey here. There's a schnapps-like quality to it. Again, going back to that kind of grassy, light hay bale kind of feel. But there is something quite herbal about it as well. It's almost like it's like a honeysuckle thing. So not herbal, but like plant life, you know, flora. But it also just reminds me of I climbed Holcombe Hill. Well, it's not like climbing Mount Everest. I walked up Holcombe Hill in Bury with a couple of friends about a month ago, and it was a really hot day, and you could smell like the plants pulling in sunshine and like, you know, just that kind of meadowy summer grass smell, freshly cut, all that sort of stuff. Let's taste it because I'm quite excited about this one. Ooh. That is such a bigger profile. Really chewy and oily. So I'm going to take the box on the non-chill filtered bit. The finish on that is, for those of you that are fans of Quality Street, that huge tin of chocolate that is always released sort of Christmas time in the UK, there is a thing in there called a toffee penny, and it's just a very thin circular bit of toffee. And the finish is all toffee. Chewy caramel. Really kind of butterscotch stuff. The palate is moving into that more herbal thing though. It's almost like, not seaweed or anything like that, but it's just, think of things like rosemary, kind of parsley. You know, there's kind of like slightly bitter herbs that are great on food and like cooking within things, but you know, if you chew on a sage leaf, it's not the most pleasant thing in the world, but it has that kind of green herbaceousness to the palate. I will say, for a 12-year-old as well, it is quite oak driven. There are some really nice woody notes to that. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, just to see if that switches anything up. I'm not going to do that to the little mill, because I don't think that whiskey needs any more watering down. And I'm going to chat a little bit just about closed distilleries. Now, grab my phone here. During COVID and during lockdown, a long time ago now, well, not that long ago, I thought to myself, I don't want to stop Whiskey Wednesday, so I will continue to do it, but we'll make it more interesting and a bit more unusual. And I started buying closed distillery samples from numerous specialist websites. And luckily they all fit onto one page here. So that is all of them. If it'll focus. Everything you see that's still in white is something which I haven't tried yet. I'm not sure if that'll work the right way around on this video. We will see. But recently I was in Glasgow. Well, about a month ago I was in Glasgow for work, and then I went to Edinburgh for a holiday with my partner. And when I was in Glasgow, I was in the pot still, as you do, and they had a rare malts Colburn in their little cabinet. And it's just so rare to see a rare malts bottle open. So I bet the bullet, paid quite a lot of money for a 35ml sample of this. And I had the first sip of the glass and I had the last sip of the glass. And in between I was passing it around to some of my work colleagues, being like, now, what do you think this is? Obviously you're never going to guess it, it's such an obscure thing. But even after having paid for it and having tasted it, and it was good, but it wasn't mind-blowing in any way. I know some of those rare malts bottles have godlike status, the Brauers in particular, and the St. Magdalene, but I don't think I'll ever get to try those, so I'm not really going to build them into this conversation. It was perfectly okay, fine whiskey. Cool that it was cash strength. I think it was like 59.6%, maybe even a bit stronger, but wasn't worth it, if you know what I'm talking about. Like, it wasn't one of those things where it changed my life. There are whiskies that are made and produced all year and that you can buy in every specialist shop, which are pretty life-changing and interesting and very different. And upon purchasing these two for £20 each, which I, again, still think is quite reasonable, I just don't really get the hype with the closed distillery stuff. Yes, it doesn't exist anymore. The supply isn't there and the demand is there, so therefore, massive price point. But I've tried numerous bottles of Banff and they're just not that interesting. I did try the rare malts Glen Ury Royal, and that was really good. It tasted more like rum. I have tried St. Magdalene and loved it. I do think Brauer's worth the hype, but they've reopened the distillery. Port Ellen was always good because it's old and it's smoky. But I can see why stuff like Little Mill closed, why things like Colburn closed, Lockside. What else have I tried which I was really unimpressed with? There's quite a lot of Capadonic in the world. Imperial's really good. It's kind of a shame they closed Imperial, but that was, every Imperial I've tried was always pretty good. But even if we go back to this list, I think this is a fantastic way, and in my mind a well-priced way, to try closed distillery stuff. I don't think you should pay any, I think £20 is the lowest bid you can put on Scotch whisky auctions. So I got these for literally what could be considered the lowest price on the biggest auction site in whisky, right? But if we go through this list, I didn't put scores next to anything, but that closed distillery series is still up on the YouTube channel. It's not filmed very well, so I do apologise, it was just filmed on my phone. But yeah, Brora, good, rate Brora. If I had the money to drink Brora every day, I absolutely would. Banff was not particularly interesting. I did get to try Convalmore 32 in January. Very elegant, very delicate, but again, not personally worth the hype in my brain. Colburn, fine. Capadonic, bit of a letdown. Dallas Dew was quite good. I like Dallas Dew. Glen Albin, I don't even remember what it tasted like. I'll have to rewatch the video. Glen-esque, don't remember. Glen Flagler, I thought was like pretty light and fruity. Glen Oogie, don't remember. Glen Erie Royal, tasted like rum. Imperial, rated it, was good. Would buy it if it was still available. King Claith, don't remember. Little Mill, there's always been a bit of a disappointment. Lockside, don't remember. Milburn, I thought smelled like coal gas. I remember that quite specifically. Port Ellen, rated it, good. Pittyvaich, it's okay. That's the nicest one I've tried, but it's still not mind-blowing. Rosebank, never got on with it. Tried like 4 or 5 of them, never really got the hype. St Magdalene / Linlithgow, tried one, really enjoyed it. So of the closed distillery list, 5 of them I'm like, good whiskies. But personally, and I'm not saying my view is the be-all and end-all, you can see why all the other things around them kind of closed. But yeah, that's my opinion on closed distilleries. Do not pay a fortune for them. If you're feeling like you want to treat yourself and you see it in a bar and you're like, you know what, to hell with it, it's one time, right? And especially in a bar in Scotland, because all the measures are 35ml, not 25ml, so you are actually getting a little bit more for your money, which is nice. And in a bar like the Pot Still, where the staff do know everything that they're talking about. But yeah, all in all, most of the ones I've tried just didn't really rate it in any way, really. Whoa, okay, so that with water now has become super fruity. It's like smelling a pack of Skittles. It's like full of blackcurrant. There's more lemon, there's more lime. It's like lemon and lime jelly. Still really tasty. But what I will say about this, it is not that dissimilar to most independent bottlings of Speyside in like a refill bourbon or a hogshead cask. It has really similar qualities to it. So yeah, not outstanding, not particularly mind-blowing. This, I just don't rate it at all. I know Loch Lomond have a lot of very old Little Mill, which sells out very quickly. But the old stuff for me, the younger stuff for me is just like, it's really not worth your time. I'll score them, sure, the scores aren't that impressive. The Little Mill, honestly, is like a 6.5 at most. Yeah. This, decent, not bad at all. If it was available in a full-size bottle and the distillery was still about, I wouldn't really pay more than 50 quid for it. Arran 10 will give you the same profile for certainly below 50 quid. Yeah, I'd give that like a 7. So, a very long video, apologies, but this was a little closed distillery series. By all means, if I can find more bargains on an auction site with older bottlings and stuff, I will. I want to do this really cool idea for like an 80s themed video with loads of bottlings from the 80s. But we'll see how that goes. A lot of expensive things to pay for this year. But thank you all for watching. As a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, I should say. I'm gonna go make some lunch. But yes, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.